to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a podcast where we explore what it's like getting older, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between. In this season of Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, we're covering topics related to vibrant aging. I'm your host, Cheryl Praska. Let's grow old together. Today, we're diving into a topic that touches so many lives, caregiving. Whether you're supporting a loved one full-time or just beginning to navigate what care looks like, caregiving can be incredibly rewarding and incredibly overwhelming. Joining me is Traci Lamb, Business Development Specialist at OdessaConnect, a technology platform that helps older adults stay connected using the most familiar screen in the home, the television. Traci brings not only professional expertise, but also a deep personal passion for empowering caregivers and reimagining how we stay connected through aging. Traci, welcome and thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm great, thank you. Traci, we have a wonderful episode planned for today where we'll explore the emotional weight of caregiving, the importance of communication, and how simple tech tools can ease some of the strain. To start, can you share a bit about your background and what led you to your work with OdessaConnect?
Sure. My background was mainly with hospice. I worked for hospice for about 14 years and did a lot of inpatient care. So I worked with patients on a daily basis about scheduling nurses. So I heard a lot of the stories of patients when they would get frustrated. They didn't know about resources. They didn't know who to contact. So at the right before COVID started in 2019, I started my own company. I live in Florida, so I'm in a midst where there's a lot of people that retire and are caregiving. And so I really just started a company that I really wanted to help provide resources to caregivers because I knew what a quandary they were in. I started that right before COVID, was just doing some webinars locally. And then my dad got sick in 2021 and both of my siblings had passed. So it really fell on me. I had moved in with both my parents in 2019 when I got divorced. And so I started taking care of both my mom and my dad. And dad passed in early 22, in February of 22. Mom and him had been married for 60 years and mom could not take care of herself. And so it was up to me just to keep taking care of her while I was trying to work and build a business. So that was interesting. Over the next 2 years, I did that. I got into TV, I got into radio, got into doing a lot of different things. The company was building, but as my company was building, my mom was declining. And so by 2024, I ended up closing my business. And honestly, I just be able to take care of my mom. And so I honestly didn't have any idea what I was going to do. I had been running my own business for about 5 years and put on my LinkedIn profile that I was a Christian and a caregiver, and OdessaConnect found me. I had never heard of them before, had no idea what the product was, anything. They ended up contacting me and I got on the phone with Bobby Brooks and he and I ended up spending about 2 hours on the phone after he explained to me OdessaConnect and what it did. And I was just completely fascinated and thought it was a phenomenal tool, especially for the senior community. And the next day he got me on the phone with Todd Smith, who is the CEO and the founder. We had another great conversation. And by the end of the conversation, Todd was offering me a job. And so that's really how it came to be. I love the company. I love the product. I strongly believe in it. And that's really kind of how it came to be. It was just kind of meant to be. I mean, it was really a kind of a crazy transition, but, and then my mom passed in January of this year. So I've just been working with Odessa since then.
I mean, definitely well-deserved. And after all of the caregiving that you put into others, the fact that you could then, put that into your career and have things work out in a sense, it's a blessing. At the same time, though, what a blessing you are to OdessaConnect to bring all that experience.
Thank you so much. I tell everybody that I talk to, I always look at everything that I see, every company I meet, that I work with, even with OdessaConnect. I look at it from the two vantage points I have. I always look at it from a caregiver aspect first, because caregiving is just such a journey. It's very difficult, and I did not understand that. I could talk the caregiver talk, I always tell everybody, before I became a caregiver, but I had not walked the caregiver walk. And it is very different when you walk the journey. So I always look at things through the caregiver eyes first, and then I look at them through the business standpoint. But it's two different aspects of looking at everything.
And with both lenses of, the caregiver talking the talk, the caregiver walking the walk, what
Yeah.
are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen or you've experienced caregivers facing today, especially for our aging loved ones who are at home?
Uh, two or three major things. Number one, I think people don't understand the financial burden that caregiving can bring. I think that's huge. I really do believe, and I advocate for this all the time, I really do believe people need to plan for caregiving like they plan for retirement. I know you can't do it down to the meticulous detail as you may do it for retirement, but you really do need to have conversations. You really do need to say, okay, what do you want done? While the person is still able to give you their wishes, while you can still talk about the finances, what you can do, what you can't do financially, all of those conversations need to be had while everybody is still calm and cool and collected, and everybody is still able to. Because all of a sudden, on any day, at any given time, your whole world can turn upside down. And everything can change on a dime. I mean, my father died, and I had no idea he had saved no money for my mom. And I had no idea that the only life insurance policy she'd get was $5,000. And so, I didn't know that because I didn't even have the conversation. And so when you don't find out until after the fact, it can be really, really detrimental for everybody involved. So that's one of the big ones. And then the other thing I think is technology. Technology can be very scary for seniors. Technology was scary for my mom. But, as they get older, it just gets harder for them, and so we need to have technology that is easy for them. That technology can definitely help them in a lot of different ways, but they need tech that can help. And that's one reason why I love OdessaConnect, was because Todd took it from the standpoint of, I'm going to make the tech easy for the senior rather than making the senior have to learn the tech. And I love that philosophy.
So we talked about the financial burden and unwelcome surprises that can occur when embarking on a caregiving journey. We also talked about the importance that technology and accessible technology can have a positive impact on a caregiving journey. I'm also thinking about the emotional aspects and
Yep.
I'm going to call it logistical burdens that
Yes.
caregivers carry. Do you
Yes.
have any experience or any
Oh, yeah.
ways in which you think you can help or OdessaConnect can help in those areas?
Oh, absolutely. And it is that those are two other huge ones. The emotional burden alone, I did not understand. I knew at hospice, we very much advocated for the caregiver and self-care. I didn't really understand that. I really didn't get that until I got in it. And once you get in it, then you realize how much you aren't thinking of yourself. You're only thinking of your person. And you just completely forget about yourself. I mean, you completely forget about you going to the gym, or you completely forget about all of your stuff because you're so consumed with taking care of them. And self-care really, really is important. And I think and the same thing as far as logistically, transportation, getting people to appointments, all of those kinds of things, again, that's a really big deal. And again, I think that's where Odessa can really come in and help with people. Number one, on the emotional side. So a lot of people, both my mom and my dad got this way. They get to where they don't want to go out a lot. When they go out, whether it's to church or anywhere else, it's a lot, to get dressed, to, like, for my mom to put on her makeup, to do all this stuff. I mean, it's a lot, and they don't want to do it. And it becomes like, I really don't want to do it. It's not worth the trouble. But they miss their people, they miss their church, they miss their friends, they miss whatever. So again, that's one reason why I love Odessa. We can basically bring all of those people not only into the home, but into the home through the TV. And so it's going to be on the big screen that they're used to. They can turn it up louder. My mom was hard of hearing. And a lot of times with phones and tablets, you can't turn it up high enough. My mom was almost deaf by the time she died. And I mean, I would want to play her music on my phone, and I would turn it all the way up. And even if she put it to her ear, she could barely hear it. But if I played YouTube on the TV, well, then she was fine because she could hear it. It was louder. So it makes a difference when you can have like a big screen and something that is bigger, that they can see visually and they can hear. And Odessa brings in, like I say, through the Caregiver app, that you can send all their friends, all their family, all the grandkids, they can have all those people do video calls into them, and they can actually video call those people. So they don't feel as lonely and as isolated. And then as far as like even the logistics go, we're starting to partner. OdessaConnect is starting to partner with a lot of different companies. And we're even talking to a couple of different transportation companies for them to be able to call transportation companies and that kind of thing. And the other thing is that because we are HIPAA compliant, they can do telehealth visits through the TV. So I know my dad got to where he didn't want to go to the VA anymore. He hated to go to the VA because, again, the whole leaving. And he could do all of his telehealth visits through the TV. And so he could have if I had known about OdessaConnect, but I didn't know about OdessaConnect with Dad. I only had it with Mom. Mom loved it. Mom was 84 and absolutely loved it.
And sometimes that one trip to the doctor, it can consume a person's whole day, because like you're saying, there is the getting ready. Also, some people can have anxiety, like, oh my goodness, especially if it's early in the morning where they're, worried, not sleeping well the night before, and just being so tired from exerting all that energy to be able to go out and do something, especially if it isn't something really social. Like going to the doctor is not like you are talking to the doctor, but it's not really a social outing. So it can just be super draining. So the fact that you're able to bring that into the home so that people can spend their energy in other places is really a pinnacle of what you do, of course.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. My mom, she always wanted an early morning appointment. I would take her to like the 8:30 appointment. That was the first one with the doctor. But by the time we got home, by like 9:30 or 10, she was completely exhausted. She was completely exhausted, and she would go to bed for like a 3-hour nap. And she didn't want to go anywhere, the rest of the day or anything. I mean, it completely wiped her out. And I think a lot of older people, the older they get, it becomes like that. That's one reason why they don't go out a lot. It's exhausting.
And that all contributes to what can eventually turn into isolation. And it could be isolation for the older adult, and it could be isolation for the caregiver who may be an older adult themselves. So I really appreciate if you could speak about the impact of isolation and how that can impact both the caregivers and the person who's in need of the care.
That it's such a huge thing. I remember, I so wish I had known about Odessa with my dad. I remember my dad saying more than once in the last few months before he had to go to a nursing home. He said, I feel like I'm just sitting here waiting to die. And it just broke my heart because, he was so isolated. He was so lonely. And he was just like, I just feel like I'm sitting here waiting to die. And, there's so many different things that can be done. OdessaConnect actually is in the process of talking to a partner that they actually have a company. It's a company that they go to different countries. And they actually do this whole experience of having somebody in the country so you can feel like you're going to Italy or whatever. And they actually are talking to the screen like they're talking to you. And so you can feel like, you may not actually be there, but you can kind of feel like you're there. Because my dad loved to travel. And I wish so bad I had known about those kinds of things, because people really do get isolated. Again, with Odessa has so many different features that I love. It almost has like a little email feature where you can get messages from people. And so like somebody can send a quick text, or you can send, hey, I just wanted you to know, Mom, that I was thinking about you, and, you can send a short video, you can make a short video and upload the video and send a short video. I tell people you can actually let them see Christmas on the TV. If you've got a tablet and you can put your tablet in front of the Christmas tree where all the family is, and you're in one state and grandma's in the other state, set up your tablet and grandma can watch Christmas and watch all the Christmas gifts get opened and everything on her TV screen. And it's going to make her feel like she's a part of it. Or a wedding, if you're at a wedding, and you want them to be able to come and they can't get out and come, then they're going to feel like they're a part of the wedding ceremony just because they can see it on a big screen. They're not having to strain their eyes or, strain hearing, on a small screen. They're going to be able to see it on the big screen. And our remote is so easy to use. My mom, we have a patented remote that only has 11 buttons on it. And it's so simple. Todd, the founder, did 3 years of research to make that patented remote. And my mom loved it so much. As soon as we got it, the 2 other remotes that worked the TV, she goes, you can throw those away. I don't want them anymore. It was so right. But it was true. It was just so simple for her to use. It has an on-off button. So she just knew to turn it on and turn it off. And it had a TV button. So if she wanted to watch TV, she'd hit the TV button. Or if she wanted to play in her Odessa, whether it was games or messages or videos, or she wanted to video call somebody, then she'd hit the Odessa button and she'd go into her Odessa. I mean, it's just so easy and simple for them to use. And they don't have to remember passwords and all those other crazy things.
You shared a lot of the various features that OdessaConnect provides. Could you give us an explanation for anyone who's unfamiliar with how does OdessaConnect work?
Sure. So it is a box. It's a singular box. It's a small, thin black box, and it can convert any TV that has HDMI. So most TVs now have HDMI. Any TV that has HDMI into a two-way communication tool. So, and the basic kit comes just with the box and our patented remote that has the 11 buttons on it that I talked about. The box is very simple to connect. It literally only has 4 plugins in the back. I actually connected it to our TV. So it's very simple to connect. You don't have to have, a rocket science degree. And like I say, they program it when you get it. You call our tech support. We do have tech support that's actually here in the United States. They're actually in Louisville, Kentucky. We actually have human beings that actually answer the phone, which is beautiful. You call them and they will actually configure it with your TV so that if you have like a Roku or if you have Netflix or smart TV, whatever you may have, they will configure your remote over the phone so that it will make your remote become a universal remote. So then you will be able to get rid of all your other remotes. And then there are, like I say, they can watch TV. And if they're watching TV and all of a sudden there is a caregiver app, so everybody doesn't have to have the box. So all the friends and family and even the healthcare provider can all have the caregiver app. And it's free. You can download it from Google or from Android. It is a HIPAA compliant platform, so doctors can do the telehealth visits. It is what we call a walled garden. So I was the primary caregiver for my mom. So anybody who I wanted to be able to call her on the TV, they had to get an invite from me through the caregiver app. So that way, nobody who was unsolicited could call my mom through her TV. So only people that I knew, that I trusted, would be able to get through that. And the box actually has a microphone and a camera inside it. You can't see it. And it only comes on when the person accepts a video call. And as soon as the video call ends, it immediately turns off. So it's not always watching you or always on or anything like that.
And that's a big concern right now, where with Friends Life Care members, they don't want 24/7 monitoring or cameras set up in the home.
No.
They don't want that at all. I don't know that anybody really wants that at all. So the fact that this is something that can be turned off and on, as well as managed by the primary caregiver, who we're going to assume is a trusted loved one in that person's life, makes just it is safe. It makes it feel safe. It makes it feel comfortable. Absolutely.
And it is a comfort, because like I've traveled some with Odessa, and while mom was alive, and I did video calls with her, and she was able to answer the video call while she was sitting on her couch. She just hit, okay, I'll accept the call. And there's actually a little talk button built into the remote. So if your person has like a quiet voice, they can actually hit that talk button and they can go ahead and just speak normally. Most people don't even have to hit the talk button. They can just go ahead and speak normally, and they can be heard through the TV. So it's very, very simple to use.
Would you prefer to age independently in your own home or live in a nursing facility? I know what I'd rather do. Friends Life Care membership offers just that. Plan today for a future lived at home with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience while protecting your savings. Learn about your options at a free seminar or webinar. Register at friendsLifeCare.org/register or call 215-628-8964. Welcome back to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, where today I'm joined by Traci Lamb from OdessaConnect to talk about staying connected through a caregiving journey. Are there any ways, in addition to the phone calls and being able to send a message, that OdessaConnect is able to help build that connection between, caregivers, and especially caregivers from afar, and their loved one?
Yes. One of the main features I love is we have what's called remote patient monitoring. My mom had high blood pressure, and my mom used to fudge numbers. Like I would say, Mom, you probably should take your blood pressure today. And so she would take it, and then I'd say, well, what were your numbers? And she said, well, they were a little high. And I'd say, well, what is high? And she didn't want to tell me because they were really high. And because she didn't want to worry me. But I knew if they were really high, I needed to call our doctor. So a lot of times, as much as we love our patients, they can kind of fudge on stuff like that. Well, what I love about Odessa is that we can do what we call remote patient monitoring. What that means is that we can take their temperature, their weight, their blood pressure. We have a glucometer, so we can do glucose as well, and their pulse. So we can do all 5 things remotely through the TV. So basically what that means is we can send them 5 Bluetooth devices that all take those different things. So like let's say, for example, they took their temperature. They would take it and they would shoot their forehead. And they don't even have to be able to read the thermometer, because as soon as they shoot it and it takes their temperature, it's immediately going to shoot it not only to the TV screen so they can see what the actual temperature is, but it's going to send it through the caregiver app directly to the caregiver. So if mom lives in Florida and daughter lives in Seattle, and daughter's worried about the blood pressure, she can do a video call with mom and say, hey, mom, I need you to take your blood pressure. So she takes her blood pressure. Daughter is immediately going to get notified exactly what the blood pressure is through her caregiver app. And then if it's high, then she could say, okay, I'm going to call your doctor. And we can even now do 3 or 4-way calling. So if the daughter is on the TV talking to mom, then the doctor can actually jump on and be on there as well, almost like a Zoom call. We can do that on the TV. So it makes it to where, for me, again, this is looking at it from the caregiver side. For me, it gives the caregiver peace of mind, because you can know, okay, if her blood pressure is high, I can immediately know that I can contact the doctor. And if the doctor, we also have a healthcare dashboard on the back end for providers. So if the doctor actually is pulled in, then the doctor can actually see her vitals every day. You know, if she takes her vitals every day, the doctor can see those as well. And he'll have a whole healthcare dashboard that he can see.
And to be able to identify trends and really reduce the risk of entering an emergency situation where somebody might be, passing out because of blood pressure or
Exactly.
having a major cardiac event. And my
Exactly.
grandmother lives in a senior living community,
Mhm.
and they're available to check on her and help her take her blood pressure and help her get in touch with her doctor should she need to. She also has friends who keep an eye out for her. As her
Mhm.
family, we're also very involved. However, we don't live with her, so we are trusting the
Yep.
individuals who are overseeing the facility where she's living to help support her quality of life. So
Yeah.
with OdessaConnect being able to come into the home, it's providing some of that medical oversight
Yep.
that you aren't going to get for the most part if you don't have these pieces of technology. And one thing to add is, I'm thinking about my parents. They don't want to be a burden on me. So they
Exactly.
don't want to call and tell me my blood pressure's high or
Nope.
low, or I'm not feeling well today. They'll
Yeah.
kind of push it until it gets to be critical, and then it's an emergency situation.
Exactly. And, we also have a thing on the OdessaConnect that if the temperature is out of bounds, if the blood pressure is out of bounds, if any of those things are that way, it immediately will send a red alert to the caregiver, so that the caregiver knows, oh, mom just took her blood pressure. Oh my goodness, it's 190 over 120. Okay, I need to call her doctor like right now, and I need to do a video call with her right now and make sure she's like upright. So
Mhm.
you'll immediately get notified that, okay, something's out of whack. Time to do something about it. And if her healthcare provider is pulled into the OdessaConnect, then the healthcare provider would get dinged as well.
Mhm. And hearing about all these different ways that a caregiver really has to be responsible for their
Yeah.
loved one, it makes me go back to what you were saying earlier in our conversation about needing to take that time for self-care. And
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear, what are ways that you have found help a caregiver being able to take that respite and help maintain connections of their own outside of their, one-to-one or 1-to-2 caregiving journey with their loved ones?
Yeah, it's so important. I really think you have to almost build it into your calendar, because when you are taking care of a loved one, you do have a calendar. I mean, you have to calendar everything, all the appointments and when they have to take their medications. And I mean, you live and die by your calendar. And I really do think that it becomes like monumental that you build in time for, okay, and you let your person know, okay, mom, Friday afternoon, I'm going to go and I'm going to have lunch with my 3 best girlfriends. And, I'll have my Odessa with me. So, I can check on you or whatever. And if you need me, you can video call me. But, I'm just going to go have, a long lunch with my girlfriends. And I really do think you need to build it in some time, because if you don't build it in, you're never going to do it. I mean, you're
Mhm.
never just, if you care about your person at all, you're just never going to do it. And, I think you have to. My mom finally got to where she would say to me, she would say, Traci, you have to take care of yourself, because if something happens to you, I'm in trouble. And it's true. You have to remember that it's almost like a reverse parent-child relationship. My dad joked with me before he got really bad. He said, when did we switch roles, Trace? When did you become the parent and I became the child? And I'm like, well, Dad, if you won't take your medication, then I have to become like a parent-like person. And they become very stubborn at times, and they want to keep as much dignity as possible. They know that they are losing all these different things in their lives, and it's becoming hard enough for them. They're having to understand that my life is changing and my child is having to take care of me, and it's really hard. They don't want to put that on you. They've always sheltered you or wanted you to do the best you can, and they want you to have your life, and they don't want to be your life. Mm-hmm. But it does become that way if you really don't plan accordingly.
And that switching roles really speaks to me, because I'm a parent, and for my older son, I slowly see him starting to gain his independence. And that is such a beautiful thing to see, and watch him in new situations with new friends. And just thinking about, when perhaps my parents need more support from my brother and me, about ways, how can we maintain some of that independence for them, and purpose
Yes.
in their life, even though your world might start becoming a bit smaller because you can't do all the things that you used to do. So what are some ways we can, top 3, what are 3 things you need to have to be purposeful? It just makes me start thinking of that before it really gets too far.
Yeah, I would say the top 3 things that I would say to you at your stage where you're at. Number 1, I would just definitely sit them down, both you and your brother, and just have the conversation. What do you want done if this happens? If one of you gets struck with a really bad chronic disease or terminal disease, what do you want done? Do you have a will? Do you have a living will? Do you have a power of attorney? What do you want done with your stuff? Do you have a trust? Any of those kinds of things. Most people don't have that stuff. I can tell you 90% of the people that came into the hospice, they didn't have it. And so all of those things are important, because you're going to end up having to deal with that stuff. I would definitely say that would be the first thing. The second thing I would do is I would find out, as far as, okay, so one of the hardest questions you have to ask is, okay, so if it becomes too much, like for my dad, it was just me and my mom. And my mom was a very small, thin person, and I'm not a super huge person. And my dad was a very heavy person. So when my dad would fall, we literally had to call the paramedics, and have 4 paramedics come and pick him up. Mm-hmm. And my dad got to where he fell a lot. So that's why I finally had to move him to a facility, because he became completely bedbound, and he lost his legs. So you have to have the conversation. Okay, we will do our best not to ever put you in a facility, but if that happens, have we got, number 1, any kind of resources for that? Do we need to start planning for resources for that? All of those different kinds of questions that go into that primary question. And then I think the last thing I would do, honestly, is I would just kind of figure out what you're going to do as far as resources go. If your parents live far away, are they willing to move in with one of the 2 of you, or are they willing to move closer? A lot of times older people, they love the community that they've been in for 20 some odd years, and they don't necessarily want to move. But sometimes it becomes a necessity. Okay, if you want us to keep you home and not put you in a facility, then we're going to have to move you here, because they get to where they need too much care. They need daily care. So you have to have those 3 conversations, in my opinion. And if you can at least do that ahead of time, at least everybody's on the same page. Because at any time, somebody could have a stroke and they could live. And then you've got to deal with the repercussions of that. They could have a heart attack and they could live through it. And then you got to deal with the repercussions of that. I mean, at any given day, everything could turn upside down. And that's the thing you have to remember. Hospice's saying is every day is a gift. And it's the truth. Every day is a gift.
In addition to what I wrote down was, it's never too early to start a conversation or to start planning. Are there any other, what I'd say, overlooked tools or strategies that you can think of that more caregivers should know about?
Actually, I do. There is a company, and I love them. They're wonderful. There's a company called Adaptive Equipment Corner, AEC. Christina and Cindy Weiss run it. They have a YouTube channel that is phenomenal. You can Google them. They're in Google or YouTube. They are constantly putting up not only videos on how to help caregivers, like how to move somebody from a wheelchair to the couch without hurting yourself. There's things like this that like come into play. How to move somebody, how to use a walker correctly, there's just a gazillion different things. So they make videos like that, but they also are constantly making videos of new products that people can use at home to age in place at home, because there's tons of them. And so I would highly suggest that as people start to see themselves coming into this space, start looking at resources like that, because I'm telling you, you're going to want all the help you can get. Mm-hmm. And even when you find little things or big things that can help you, that's like, there's a woman, Janice, her dad was in a nursing home and his neck kept falling like this. And she got really upset. And she kept telling the nursing home people they needed to help it. Well, they tried every kind of pill known to mankind to try and prop his head up, and nothing worked. So she finally got frustrated and went home, and she created a pillowcase. And it is so cool because it has a square around it that your head literally fits into. And so it keeps your head straight, so your head won't fall to the right or to the left. And I know so many people that have used that, and it keeps their neck straight. So there's just a lot of different things like that you definitely want to be able to utilize.
There is a lot out there. And I do often wonder if people aren't using assistive devices, or they aren't adjusting their home to make it more accessible and adaptable, because they just don't even know where to start. They don't know how to use it. Right. They don't know. Right. So then, they want to age in place, or they want to be able to get out more, but they don't know how to overcome some of the hurdles they're facing. So just, to the listeners, take this as an invitation to explore, because there is very likely something out there that can help you with the challenge to achieve the goal that you're working on.
I completely agree. I had no idea until I started my business and I found out about all these different kinds of things, how many wonderful products, services are out there. There's tons of resources out there. And I know it would help if they would all be in one place, but I will tell you that Adaptive Equipment Corner has a lot of them in one place, truly. So I would definitely urge your listeners to go there. They have a lot of them there, but I would definitely find resources that can help you. Even early on, you will be so grateful.
Absolutely. Well, Traci, what excites you most about what's next for OdessaConnect or caregiving innovation?
What I love about, and what's exciting to me really about OdessaConnect, is the fact that, we continue to kind of push the boundaries for a lot of the different areas that we're going into, which I'm really, really excited to help seniors in a lot of different places. I think I think we all forget sometimes that there's seniors everywhere. They're not just all in senior living communities or whatever. They're in a lot of different places. And so to me, I just like helping as many people as I can, because I know where those caregivers are. I have walked that journey now, and I know how much help they need. And it is just so amazingly awesome to be able to help them and see, oh my goodness, this is so awesome. This is just going to give me such peace of mind. And to me, that's the reward, is to be able to really help those people and know that I've just taken at least a little bit of the burden that they've been carrying away. And that's to me part of the best part of the journey.
And the fact of the matter is, if we're lucky enough, we're all going to be older adults. We're
Absolutely.
all going to be seniors. So,
Absolutely.
Doing this work in aging services, which is a passion for both of us, is helping set up ourselves as well as people in our own generations to be successful. So that's one of the reasons why I love working in aging services too.
Absolutely. And, I just was speaking to somebody the other day. She was saying to me that she had a health scare, and she really thought, and she has younger kids. I think her youngest, is 10, but then she has like a 14-year-old, and she's a single mom, and she thought she had gotten a cancer diagnosis, and she had to tell her kids that, there was a possibility. And she goes, it made me think, what is the right age to start having the conversation, about caregiving, because all of a sudden my 10-year-old and my 14-year-old might have to start, helping me, in some capacity. And she goes, that just was like a whole light bulb moment. And to me, it's so true, because my sister was killed in a car crash when her kids were 16 and 13, and so, it can happen in the blink of an eye. And so I think that's one reason why it is important, no matter what you do or what industry you work in or live in or whatever it may be, that people have these conversations. Don't make it like it's a bad topic. We're all going to age, and unfortunately we're all going to one day die. It's kind of like death and taxes. It's the reality of life. It is what it is. We can't change it. So it is what it is. So rather than, it doesn't mean you have to talk about it every day. It doesn't mean you have to talk often, but at least just having the conversation so that people are aware, okay, we do at least have a plan. Then you won't completely freak out when, whatever happens. You'll at least say, okay, my mom's passing was so much easier for me than my dad's, even though I was so much closer to my mom, because of the simple fact that mom and I had talked about it enough. I had a plan. I knew what I was going to do. And with my dad, I had no clue. My dad had done all the finances, and he had kept it from my mom. So I didn't even get a look at the finances until his deathbed. And then it was like, oh my word, look at what I'm looking at. And so you don't want that. If you can avoid that at all costs, you really need to do that because that just makes the journey 10 times harder.
Before we conclude, is there anything that you want to add to this conversation or reiterate from something that we did touch on throughout the episode?
I think that the main two stressors that I would probably put an exclamation point on is number one, like I say, try and plan, if you can try and plan. But then the other thing is that look for resources like OdessaConnect. OdessaConnect is a wonderful tool to help families and your person, really, who's the most important at the time, to stay connected to the world, because they are going to get to where they feel like my dad did, like I'm just sitting here waiting to die. And you don't want that. Depression can be very real in seniors. Loneliness can be very real. And A lot of times you can bring some people over some of the time, but that even wears them out, because they feel like they've got to get dressed and look nice for all the people that are coming. And so for them to be able to do it on the TV and just at the click of a button, it just makes it to where it's so much easier, and they can laugh and they can talk and they can have communication, and they can feel like they're still wanted and they're still needed and they're still loved. And that's the main key.
Where can listeners learn more about OdessaConnect and connect with you?
Sure. So they can learn more about OdessaConnect at OdessaConnect.tv. That's the website. And if they want to contact me, I would love to talk to anybody. My email is Traci, Traci, at OdessaConnect.tv, or they can give me a call at 813-997-7503. And that's my number.
And I will put the website, the phone number, and your email in the show notes from today so listeners can access them. And I want to express my sincere gratitude, Traci, for taking the time to join me today, for having this conversation really full of compassion, insight, and some tangible real-world takeaways for anyone on the caregiving journey. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a unique program focused on aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience. You can find links and show notes from this episode on our website at friendslifecare.org/podcast. Thank you to Traci Lamb for joining us today. You can learn more about Traci and OdessaConnect by visiting OdessaConnect.tv, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. If you like our show, please rate, review, subscribe, and join us next time. To learn more about aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience, subscribe to our blog at friendslifecare.org/blog.